Nobody asks this question seriously. They say the word reality like it's settled, like everyone agreed on what it means and moved on. They didn't. The physicists haven't agreed. The philosophers haven't agreed. And if you've ever had a dream that felt more real than the room you woke up in, you haven't agreed either. So let's ask it properly. What is a reality? Here is what physics actually says. There are no solid objects, not one, not anywhere. What you're sitting on right now, what you're touching, is not solid matter. It's a field, a quantum field, vibrating at frequencies your nervous system interprets as solid. The table is not a table. It's an event, a pattern of energy occurring in space that your brain has learned to call a table because that interpretation kept your ancestors alive. This is not philosophy. This is the standard model of particle physics, the most tested theory in the history of human science. Everything is a field, and here is where it gets interesting. Fields don't have edges. They extend. They overlap. They interact across distances that should make interaction impossible. And yet, two particles, separated by the width of the observable universe, can affect each other instantaneously. Einstein called it spooky action at a distance. He didn't like it. The universe didn't care. What this means is that reality is not a collection of separate things. It's one thing, expressing itself in patterns we've learned to label and separate. One field, everywhere, all at once. Now here is the question nobody wants to answer. Where does consciousness fit in that field? The standard answer is that consciousness is produced by the brain. Neurons fire, chemistry happens, and somehow experience emerges. Somehow. That word is doing a lot of work in that sentence. No one has explained how physical processes produce the felt experience of being alive, of seeing red, of knowing that you exist right now, aware of your own awareness. This is called the hard problem of consciousness. It has been unsolved for as long as people have been serious about solving it. But there is another model. What if consciousness isn't produced by the brain, but received by it? What if the brain is not a generator, but an antenna, tuned to receive a signal that exists independently? The way a radio doesn't create music, but picks it up from a field that was already there. Maharishi Mahesh Yogi and physicist John Hagelin, who worked at CERN and holds a doctorate from Harvard, formally proposed that the unified field of physics and the field of pure consciousness accessed in deep meditation are the same field. Both are characterized by self-interaction, self-awareness, infinite correlation. Every major contemplative tradition arrived at the same description independently. The Hindus called it Brahman. The Taoists called it the Tao. The Buddhists called it sunyata. The physicists are approaching it from the outside with particle accelerators. They're all pointing at the same thing. One field, conscious everywhere, and you are not inside that field. You are that field, having a localized experience of itself. So back to the question, what is a reality? Here is a working definition. A reality is a stable configuration of the field, filtered through a particular bandwidth of consciousness and experienced as a coherent world. That's a precise sentence. Let's slow it down. Stable configuration of the field. The field has infinite possible states. A reality is what happens when certain states become consistent, when patterns repeat and solidify into what we experience as physical law. Filtered through a particular bandwidth. Not all of the field is accessible to your current consciousness. Your senses pick up a narrow band of frequencies. Dogs hear more, bats see in sonar, mantis shrimp see colors. You have no names for. Every species inhabits a different version of the same underlying field. You are already tuned to one channel. There are others. Experienced as a coherent world. A reality only becomes a reality when there is a consciousness to experience it. This is not mysticism. This is the Copenhagen interpretation of quantum mechanics, the dominant framework in physics for nearly a century, which states that quantum systems exist in superposition until observed. The act of observation collapses possibility into experience. Reality requires a witness, which means that what you call reality is not something that exists independently of you and that you then stumble into. It is something that your consciousness participates in creating every moment through the act of attention. This leads somewhere most people aren't ready to go. If reality requires a witness and the field contains infinite possible configurations, then there is no reason, mathematically, physically, philosophically, why there should be only one reality. Hugh Everett proposed this in 1957. His many worlds interpretation of quantum mechanics says that every quantum event that could go multiple ways does go multiple ways. Each possibility becomes a branch. Each branch is a world. Each world is real. There are not many universes in this model because someone got creative. There are many universes because the math of quantum mechanics demands them. Everett didn't invent the multiverse. He found it already there in the equations. What this means for you is this. The version of your life where you made the other choice exists, not as a fantasy, not as a metaphor, as a real configuration of the field, inhabited by a version of your consciousness, right now. And if that's true, then what you call your life is not a fixed track you're moving along. It's a path you're selecting, moment by moment, from an infinite field of possible paths. This is what manifestation actually is. When it works, not magic, not wishful thinking, navigation. You are not creating a new reality. You are tuning toward a configuration of the field where what you want already exists. Neville Goddard described this in the 1940s without the quantum framework. He called it living in the end, inhabiting the version of yourself that already has what you want, until that version becomes the one the field stabilizes around. The physics caught up with him eventually. Oh, one more thing before we close. Dreams. Every culture in human history has treated dreams as meaningful, not decoration, not noise, as a source of information that waking consciousness can't access. They were right. When you sleep, the filtering mechanisms of waking consciousness relax. The narrow bandwidth opens slightly, and what comes through is information from the broader field. Precognitive dreams, Dreams that accurately depict future events have been documented across every culture and every century of recorded history, too consistently to dismiss, too specifically to explain as coincidence. What if they aren't predictions? What if they are reception, your consciousness, and sleep, making contact with configurations of the field that your waking attention hasn't reached yet, accessing branches of the wave function that your daytime filtering system screens out as irrelevant? Dreams are what happens when you stop insisting so hard on only one channel. So, what is a reality? It is one stable expression of an infinite field, witnessed into coherence by a consciousness that is itself an expression of that same field. You are not in a reality. You are how a reality happens. Stay at the threshold.